All right, today's the day. We got to meet the new defensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts, Lou Anarumo. Seems like a nice guy, soft-spoken guy. Seems like a guy who knows what he's doing, has an idea of how he wants to do it. Here's Lou Anarumo kind of introducing himself to Indianapolis, to you, the fan. What do you think? I'm interested. Leave a comment.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on?
Doing great. Fire away.
Well, kind of a quick series of events, I guess, for you the last few weeks. But just what drew you here, and and also in determining that you wanted to come back and coach right away as well.
Yeah, I think if you'd ask most coaches, we don't like staying out very long, and thank God for me, it wasn't long. But great organization from ownership down, and know Shane and how he runs the team and his leadership, and Chris Ballard, how they've I've looked from afar and always appreciated what this place stands for. So I've been in this state for a long time and coached at Purdue for a while, and so my kids grew up here, so it's a somewhat home for us.
Did you have a prior relationship with Shane or Chris?
Just through the coaching and competing against each other. Certainly we've always talked, and it seemed like wherever I was, whether it was Miami or Cincinnati playing the Chargers or the Eagles, going against Shane, so it's always a tough day.
Lou, what will it mean for you? For you to put your stamp on this defense, what would that mean?
Well, I think one of the things that we'll hang our hat on it will be, we're always going to try to be a smart, fast, and physical team. Those three things. You don't want to beat yourself in this league. You want to make sure that guys know where their help is on every down. No unforced errors, things like that, where you can eliminate and win games by just allowing the other team to make their mistakes, and we're going to, stay steadfast. If you don't play fast, you don't have a chance, and certainly coming from the AFC North, it's a physical division, and certainly that's everybody in football prides themselves on that, but that's certainly something we'll bring home as well.
You have a reputation for changing your scheme and system based on game plan. How did that develop?
Well, I think you have to be flexible these days and multiple. When you're playing the quarterbacks, especially on our side in the AFC, going against Joe every day in practice, trying to guard T and Jamar, guys like that, and it lends to not just, hey, you're going to be in this coverage, you're going to stay in that, and it'll be a long day. And then going through the playoffs and things like that into the Super Bowl, you have to keep those great quarterbacks off balance. I think you have to make them uncomfortable. Even the best ones at times, you're not going to fool them all day, but if it's in the most critical situation, that's what you're hoping to do, and certainly that's we've had some success doing that.
I know you haven't had a chance to do a deep dive into the players, but just on surface level, just what were first impressions for you?
Very excited, both me to come and talk to them and them to come and talk to me. So, spoke to a number of them on the phone. Some guys have popped in, and just ready to go to work. I know we're still a ways away from that. We're just starting. But the guys have been super excited, and so am I.
Just from a talent perspective, do you know much about these guys, or do you have any thoughts?
Absolutely. I think we've had Pro Bowlers at each level at some point in their careers. It all starts up front. Those guys can affect the game more than anybody, and we've got some good players up there. And then as you go through the linebacking core and then the DBs, there's certainly guys that can affect the game as well. So, we're going to jump into all that here, and this is day 2, I think. So we're hit the ground running.
You got to coach in the Super Bowl and had some high highs, but why do you think things kind of tapered off at the end in Cincinnati? What did you maybe learn from that you can apply here?
I think every year in the NFL, my 6 years in Cincy, we had 4 winning seasons and 2 AFC championship games and a Super Bowl. The first 2, we were kind of working our way through the roster, and it was an older roster. We were able to get kind of the guys we wanted to. I think we all deal with different types of things as the seasons change, whether injuries or things like that. So I just feel like if you're not consistent enough, and that's something that we weren't maybe the last year or two, that'll affect how wins and losses end up. You know, last year 23 Joe went down for us, so and then this year, you know, they put up some great numbers, and we had some of our issues that we had to deal with. But you know, you learn from those things, you move on, and on to the next.
What do you think changed down the stretch for you all the last 5 games?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, so we're sitting there. I think it starts with you hear the word culture all the time. But I think that's a word that shows up when things aren't going so well. You know, when things are going well, everybody's going to be on board. Everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction. It's in those challenging times where, you know, we're 4-8, not playing great, and the leadership in the room, guys that we've been to war with, to, you know, whether it's a playoff game, preseason, or whatever it may be, we would not allow anybody to let go of the rope. And so not only do we get better, we end up winning, as you mentioned, 5 in a row. You know, beat 2 playoff teams, Denver and the Steelers, held the Steelers to under 200 yards in a game that we needed, they needed. So I just think the younger guys that were playing for us, you know, they kind of felt like they belonged, you know, after a while, and you know, we really started taking the ball away. That was another thing that was important. And we had Trey Hendrickson, and Trey, you know, led the league in sacks, and anytime you got a guy like that, it can really affect the game. So, but I think it starts and ends with the leadership and the culture, leadership from the coaches, and then certainly from the players as well. And that's important. That's something that we'll dive into here. I know Shane has done a great job with that, and we'll keep it going.
How long does it take for a defense to kind of start behaving the way you want them to behave?
I don't think you put a timetable on it. It'll be a work in progress. You know, certainly before the first game. You know, we've got time. So, you know, we'll go through OTAs, we'll go through training camp. You know, and you know, by the time we, you know, lace it up for the first game, we'll be hitting on all cylinders.
I'm sure the blitz numbers that we see are probably a little bit off, but it looks like yours went down over your time in Cincinnati. Why?
That's just game by game. You know, it could be. You know, I like bringing Mike Hilton off the slot. We've got a guy that's very similar, Kenny Moore, and you know, it depends on the situation and who we're playing, but no real specific reason for that.
Is there a particular position group that needs to be really strong for your defense to be at its peak?
Well, I think I don't care what defense or what style you're playing. I think if you can hang your hat on, as I mentioned earlier, the guys up front, you know, and then certainly you always want guys that can process and be, you know, smart, forward thinkers and problem solvers out there. You don't want robots, you know, and that's something that we pride ourselves on is, you know, we're going to come to the sideline and we're all going to be working at this together. The guys are out there, so, you know, the linebackers talking to me, talking to DBs, talking to linebackers, you know, linebackers talking to D-line, and always trying to solve problems, always trying to fix what the issues are, and not just the coaches, the players too. That's a big part of it, and we'll talk to them that way.
You are sort of somewhat game plan specific. What does that require from the players in terms of like being locked in and being on top of things?
Well, I think it's just a matter of, you know, you're going to identify what the team does well, identify who the problem players are. You know, where's the great receiver, and what do we got to do to slow him down? You know, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, guys like that, you know, we have to play twice a year. They present multiple problems along with, you know, Zay Flowers and guys like that. So, you know, whoever or whatever the issues are, you know, you want to put it in front of the guy and say, okay, you know, if we can take these guys away or minimize their damage in the game, we're going to give ourselves a chance to win.
Lou, the best coaches do more with less. Are you good enough to win, to get it done? You don't have great players.
I mean, I think every coach would say, you know, you want, we're not out there making tackles and getting off blocks. You're going to have good players, that's for sure. But I know this, you know, this league these days, guys are in and out of the lineup for a number of different reasons. The rosters turn over. So you've got to be flexible enough as a coach to, you know, to be able to work with a guy that maybe was not even on your team the week before. So I think we've all dealt with that. I'll never forget, give you a story. I was in Miami. It was my first year in the NFL, 2012. we claimed the guy off of waivers. It was later in the year. It's like we had, I think, 3 games left, and he had an issue with his flight. So Wednesday during practice, this is the first time I meet the guy. He's running out of the facility in the middle of practice. He missed the beginning because of the flight. And I'm like, hey, Dimitri, how you doing? Coach Lou. All right, get in there. And he was going to start on Sunday. You know, made a mental error on the first play of the game, and then played 61 really good plays the rest of the way. So I think, you know, you deal with the instances that come about, and you handle it, and you go from there.
There was a lot made of Jesse Bates leaving Cincinnati. Is that role specifically that he played essential to your defense in 2 years ago?
Oh, Jesse's a great football player. He's a problem solver. He can go get the ball. He's a guy that does he checks a lot of boxes, right? Smart, good tackler, great ball skills, communicates. So, you know, you get a guy like that, certainly it's going to hurt any defense, you know, and he's shown his worth in Atlanta. You know, DJ Reader was another key component for us that went to Detroit this year. So I think anytime you're strong up the middle, you know, that's going to be something that helps, again, any defense, not just ours.
There's some players here who played together for a while, but a couple of the captains, Kenny Moore and DeForest Buckner, talked about how they felt like they ran into some issues with that, with egos, complacency, practice habits. How do you, as kind of leader of that group, go about attacking and diagnosing and fixing those type of things?
I just think that that can happen in this league, right, wrong, or indifferent. I wasn't here, so I can't speak to it. But I know this, sometimes a fresh start for a coach or for players is a good thing. I know the standard of how we'll carry ourselves as coaches. You know, we ask these guys to be consistent as players. I'll stand up there in front of them and say the same thing I'm saying to you. I want you guys to be this. I don't want a lot of that. And they got to expect the same thing from us. So my standard is going to be that I'm up there and I'm going to be a truth teller. I'm going to tell them the truth. It's my job to say, yes, you're doing it right, or no, you're doing it wrong. And you know, that will happen, and it will happen to all of them. I don't care number of years in the league. I don't care. You know, it's just something that, you know, I've always believed in. And good players, great players, want to be coached. They want to know the truth. All right, that's always been the case. And if they don't, then there's probably a little bit of an issue there. But the best ones I've ever been around, coach me hard, tell me what you want, and I've always found that to be true.
Your first year in Cincy, you said you had to sort of retool personnel and everything.
Yeah.
And here is a fresh set of eyes from a coaching standpoint has value. You'll have another view of what these guys are expected of. You expect of them?
I mean, I think it's different. There was maybe some older players in Cincy when we got that. I see this as a different situation from that standpoint. I again just started evaluating these guys and look from afar, but we've got some good players on this defense.
6 years in this league is a long time in one job, right? So when you look back at your time in Cincy, what are you most proud about?
I said this when I left. You know, certainly the success that we had, taking that team to two consecutive, or helping that team get to 2 consecutive AFC Championship games, and then the Super Bowl, obviously. What we did this year wasn't good enough, but I was proud of the way they rallied. Never, as I mentioned before, a lot of teams in this league would have, you know, raised the white flag and moved on, and we just don't, that's not how we operate. And we got better, and we just came up a game short from going to the playoffs, and that's just the way it is sometimes.
This Colts defense struggled with tackling last year. How do you fix tackling?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of everything. I think, you know, there's some dynamic playmakers in this league, as we all know. Good luck trying to tackle, you know, some of these guys one-on-one. So I think the more people you get around the ball, the better tackling team you're going to be. You know, we certainly have our drills that we do to help that. And it's not just, you know, hey, the rules limit us to when we can take guys to the ground, or be physical, you know, during training camp, whatever. I mean, in my mind, just a little football, like, you know, tackling is about timing and angles more than anything. So you can work on those things, when you don't have shoulder pads and helmet on. You can do that anytime. So we'll make sure everybody's finishing in the right position, and it starts there. And then we have set a process the way we go through to try to help them become better at that.
Well, I know you like to be multiple and scheme different things like that. What's the balance between being multiple but also making sure that you're not overcomplicating things for guys?
Yeah, good question. I think it's important that first and foremost, one of the things I said earlier was play smart, fast, and physical. If they're hesitant because they're processing things, then they can't play fast. So we'll balance that. Maybe we're not going to be early as where we were, left off. But after being with a group of guys for so long, this is a fresh start. But we got veterans in there too. Like we may call it X, they called it Y. There'll be some similarities. So we'll play a balancing act. I'll never overload them with too much, so that it bogs them down. I want them to be out there processing, get off blocks, making tackles, and having fun.
How much do
Time for a couple more.
Just relationships matter to you? I've read some stuff that DJ Reader said, Jesse Bates, just how much effect they had for you. How do you go about building those?
I mean, I think that's why I do this. I come to work every day and meet, we've got this time of year, it'll be 40 some odd defensive players, whatever it is, and you got 40 different personalities with 40 different issues, and it's something that I really like. I really enjoy those. You mentioned DJ, you mentioned Jesse, and all the guys that I just, we went through a lot, to get a place to where we got it. So you formed bonds during those tough times where things maybe weren't going so good, and then when you reach the pinnacle of the game and 3 points short of winning the Super Bowl, those guys I'll be there for them forever, and I know if I need something, they'll be there as well. I got a lot of respect for everybody back there in Cincy, and those players are great.
You mentioned how much Trey Hendrickson helped you out. You'll get another defensive lineman here who's pretty good, DeForest Buckner. What do you know about his game, and what does it do for a defense to have that type of talent in the three techniques?
Yeah, it's great, because then you're adding, I know I really like Latu coming out as well. So you get a guy inside, a guy outside, there's other guys up there too that can affect it. But when you got an athlete inside like Buck is, his length, knocking, the simple thing is just batting balls down at the line of scrimmage. That's something that we really stress, because that's one more down that the ball's not going down the field. So we're thrilled with him. He plays the run as well as he plays the pass. So I'm excited to work with him.
You said you've talked to a lot. You've talked to a lot of players and met a few. Who have you run into here? Have you run into? Buck's here a lot.
Yeah. Saw him yesterday for a little bit. So I've seen a bunch of a handful of the guys. Yeah.
Jake, last question.
What do the next few weeks look like for you, whether it's evaluating players or staff?
A little bit of everything. When you first get to a new place, and certainly in this time, where if you're settled in, it's really player acquisition time, right? Free agency, draft, those things. So we've got to finalize things with the staffing, and then how we're going to just get all the playbook stuff done, and while we're doing that, we're managing the free agency and draft and things like that. So it'll be a busy time.
All right, so there's Lou Anarumo, kind of a soft-spoken guy, but a confident guy, a guy who, commands the room a little bit, and that's a good thing. You got to be able to do that. A guy who prizes loyalty among his team, among his defensive players. That's a good thing. We don't know how he's going to build a staff, when that staff is going to be built. He's in the process of doing that now. He's getting to know his team. He's evaluating his team, and hopefully, I asked him about timeline as far as getting a team ready to play. He says it's going to happen by the time they play the opener. They're going to be ready to play Lou Anarumo defensive football and be in a position where they can play fast, play confidently, but play a more complex and game-to-game kind of defensive system than they had under Gus Bradley.